Castbender podcast is associated with Comic Related. If it's comic related, you'll find it here. Hello everybody and welcome to Castbender episode 58 for January 14th, 2014. We are Castbender, a show about Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Legend of Korra. Today we have a very special interview. We are interviewing Keval from Avatar: The Legend of Korra Online.com. If you know anything about our show, we always like to pull sources from the website. They have great articles, great analysis, and opinion pieces. And we've been friends with Keval for a while, and we thought, why not have him on the show? This is one of our very first interviews, many to come with a whole bunch of different people, and we hope you enjoy. So here we go. Hey man, so today we're going to have myself, Tyrell, AJ, and Tegan. I'll ask you a couple questions about your website and yourself, and then later in the interview we will be discussing more Korra related questions and fan submitted questions. So just to start off everything, can you introduce who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi, my name's Keval. I'm the writer of Avatar: Legend of Korra Online.com. I can't really take all the credit for the site because while I do write it, I have a pretty good friend. His name's Kevin. He lives in Germany. He's the one who kind of designed the site. He runs the YouTube channel, Facebook. So, and there's also Wyatt. He's also a writer on the site too. He does a lot of reviews and a lot of opinion-based posts. So the site really wouldn't be where it is here without those two as well.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into the fandom. Like we've all discussed the many ways in which we got involved. How did you get involved?
Well, it started really towards the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's kind of when I started getting into the series. I didn't watch it from the start. I kind of started it, actually when Avatar: The Last Airbender was ending, I started watching them all, and then I watched the finale live. So after that ended, I really kind of took an interest in the series. And I wanted to actually be a writer on other online fan sites. And, you know, the series had just ended, so no one really wanted any kind of help at the moment just because there was nothing to write about. So I thought, okay, whatever, that's cool. So I just kind of joined the fandom online. I used the Reddit a lot. I kind of joined some forums, avatarspirits.net. And then when The Legend of Korra came on, I thought, oh, what better time to kind of start my own site than now, just because there's actually content that can be written. So that's when I kind of started just the free WordPress domain, just started just a typical fan site. And then it really kind of started to grow during the off season for book 2 because it was just so long and not many people really knew what was going on. So I kind of just started covering that whole off season. It built an audience, and it's been pretty good from there.
And from what you're saying, it seems like you've always loved writing. Has that been sparked even further since your creation of the website? Or have you always had this passion for writing?
Well, I don't know if it was a passion for writing, but it's more of a passion for kind of getting my opinion out there. Because I'm really an opinionated person. I don't really like to just sit back and just see what everyone else says. I kind of like to put my own input there. So something I'm obviously very passionate about is Avatar: The Last Airbender, just the Avatar series in general. So it's cool to be able to have my opinion out there on the show. So that's kind of why I built the site.
So since launching your own site, what's been your biggest struggle just in general?
I'd say the biggest struggle is really just kind of keeping a readership, because I remember obviously like during the off season for book 2, the site grew pretty big, and when book 2 actually aired, it really kind of took off. But once book 2 ended, the traffic really dropped. Like I'd say about maybe a 60%, 70% drop. And I'm not really too worried about it because I understand that it is the off season, but I think the biggest struggle is just maintaining that rank in Google and just keeping the site up there and making sure people are actually reading it and don't forget about it either.
I think that's going to be the whole fandom in general during this off season. Yeah. We're going to struggle.
During the season 1-2 gap, we experienced that too because we didn't start the podcast until The Legend of Korra was
First season finished.
had ended. So we put ourselves in a bind there because we didn't expect the off season to be that long. So we were like, we can draw during the off season from content from book one. But yeah, and it's difficult. Like the viewer, in terms of like the viewer count, is definitely down for the podcast, and it's difficult for a podcast too, and a blog when you're writing stuff, because some of these posts and episodes can be longer. So people don't necessarily want to take the time and sit down, especially when
you have an increase of the casual viewer. And that really leads into the next question. Do you feel the casual viewer versus the dedicated viewer really ruins the experience of Korra? Back in Avatar The Last Airbender, I would say you had a more dedicated fan base, and now with Korra, I believe it's more casual. How do you feel about that, and do you think it's a good or bad thing?
I think it's bad. And that's because Avatar The Last Airbender grew such a huge online presence. And if The Legend of Korra isn't really, I mean, it's obviously, it's not going to live up to the expectations of The Last Airbender. That's too big. But if fans are not really getting into the show and kind of going online and really submitting their input, I think that really kind of, it's hard to explain, but I think it kind of damages the show to a certain extent. And that's just because such a big part of Avatar is discussion and online fandom. And if the show can't invoke that, I think it's kind of failing to a degree.
I noticed that when you look at it and you're trying to find people that are as passionate as you and you want to discuss, that sometimes that can be a bit lacking unless you find your little niche on the internet. And my question attached with that is, do you think the fandom is smaller than a lot of other fandoms because of the demographic in which most of the people watching it is? I know with Avatar it was like very kid focused, and I guess with Korra they tried to make it a more teenage show. But do you think because of the large number of like little kids that still watch the show, that they don't really necessarily care to go on the internet and discuss it like people our age?
To a certain degree, there are people who are discussing the show, but yeah, I agree that the smaller kids, the kids who watch the show, because obviously Legend of Korra is on Nickelodeon, it's going to draw a lot of kids who are under 10 to watch the show. They probably wouldn't be going online and really being active in the fandom.
I have a question for you. I'm wondering what your biggest surprise has been with your website and the fandom in general.
I think my biggest surprise is how passionate a lot of fans are. You know, we talked about how, yeah, the online presence maybe isn't as big as Avatar The Last Airbender, but a lot of the fans who read my blog, I'm just surprised by how passionate they are. How, like, yeah, I understand it's just a TV show, but it's like real life to them. And, you know, maybe some of my opinions, some people may not agree with. And the extent at which they can back or support their theory has just really been kind of surprising to me. I didn't realize that people took such passion in a show like that, and I didn't realize it was so many people too.
That's so great, because that's what everybody wants, especially the people that go online, even if they don't necessarily have the want to like formulate and create an opinion, rather just read what other people have to say. I've been kind of surprised too with when I struggle to form my opinion or want to back it with other things or discredit somebody else's opinion to make mine stronger. I can go online and really find some of those people that do that, and there's a couple people that are notorious for doing that, which is great because you can always rely on those people to have an opinion. Tegan, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any advice for anyone looking to start a fandom-based project, whether it be a website, podcast, whatever.
I think the biggest mistake people who try to create websites are really fandom-based websites. What they do is they try to stick to news and they stick to generalities. My advice is to really go for it and pick a side and be as opinionated as possible. Because one thing I've noticed, people enjoy a true fan. No one enjoys kind of like a talking head. People enjoy solid opinions, people who know what they're talking about, and people who are passionate about what they're talking about.
That's fantastic. Now, when we look at things like your website in terms of its changes over the years, whether it's been adding a forum feature or, you know, changing how it looks or adding new features as you've gone along, as for the future, do you plan on implementing anything new? Do you plan on surprising us with anything that we wouldn't expect from you?
I think the first thing I want to do is I want to start pushing out more quality content, longer pieces, uh, just really more quality opinionated posts. And I also want to figure out a way to build a better structured discussion too, especially on the comments. We use this plugin called Discuss for comments, and while I think it's good for the time being, I want to try to find a new comment system which makes discussion more structured and easier, so that, say, if someone posts, the comment immediately comes up. So, and I want to be able to do some kind of like threads, especially for shows where people can comment on the thread, and it just makes it easier for really readers.
For sure. Discuss seems like a great feature, and I've seen it on a bunch of websites. The only flaw, of course, that we see with it is it doesn't thread well in terms of keeping the best stuff at the top, and it kind of clutters it. But that would be a great feature to implement, a new comment system. Now, turning over, we see a lot of fandoms such as Star Wars or Lord of the Rings way back still have a very prominent fan base and people that are very dedicated to today. And even recent items like Harry Potter, for example, have a very strong fan base. Do you feel that Avatar, The Last Airbender, and The Legend of Korra can also fit into that legacy in terms of going forward, always, standing the test of time and people remembering it and watching it? Or do you think it will die and fall into the category like so many other pieces of its time do?
I think the Avatar: The Last Airbender fandom will always be present, and it will always have some kind of, it will always be present in the internet, I think, just in time, especially with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. It will kind of dominate because it's just such a good show, and it's so rewatchable. You think the show started in 2005, and people are still watching it. If you look at Nickelodeon, I've noticed that show gets more reruns than The Legend of Korra sometimes. And, yeah, so and that's the thing, is that, yeah, you have great fandoms like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, but the thing is, this is different. This is a TV show, and I think it's really standing up to fandoms like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, which is very unique because, one, it's on Nickelodeon, and two, it was made in 2005. And three, people consider it a children's show. I mean, Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and even Star Wars, I mean, those are classics. People of all ages love it. I mean, the fact that this show is on Nickelodeon and it still pulls in viewers of all ages, that's something special.
Yeah, that's true. And especially when you look at it, AJ and I would be sometimes like, holy crap, 2005. And now,
that was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
It makes me feel extraordinarily old.
Yeah, and you're right about the TV thing. And looking at it and comparing it, shows that have been on less than Avatar and had less of a following at the time that are cult classics, like, say, something like Firefly or Jericho, things like that were only one season long, or Freaks and Geeks, those shows are still watched all the time. People are still talking about them all the time, hoping, something will come of it. And I think it's possible because Avatar it's like a complete story. It was 3 seasons long, beautiful animation, great storytelling, compelling characters. It fits every demographic, whether you're 65 years old or if you're 8 years old. So it could very well stand up against the test of time. Now,
yeah, it's definitely like a new type of fandom, because you have the movie ones and the book ones and all the more genre type of fandoms for the older TV shows, but this is new. This is, well, newish. 10 years old is not new, but it's like new.
I think the one flaw, though, that this fandom will have in standing the test of time is the fact that it's no longer on Netflix anymore. Because if you look at Netflix, it's such a powerful tool, and even if you look at Breaking Bad too, I mean, that show that blew up because of Netflix. If you look at the ratings for the shows, pretty much before the last season, the second half of season 5, it was getting about 1 to 2 million viewers. But then because of Netflix, so many people were exposed to the show, and it just blew up. Now Breaking Bad's considered one of the greatest shows ever on television. And that's really attributed to Netflix. So while I think that Avatar: The Last Airbender has a fantastic fandom right now, and it will last, One thing that will allow it to last longer is if they somehow figure out a way to put it back on Netflix. Because you have to think, the show's not going to be running on Nickelodeon forever. If you think, say, 20 years from now, the show is obviously still going to be as good as it is now. But it probably, people won't know about it just because it probably won't be on Nickelodeon anymore. I think if they put it on Netflix, people will be able to view it.
Yeah, and you get the new viewership because people subscribe to Netflix all the time, looking for something to do when they're bored, find a new show. It's true. That's how I found Breaking Bad. Like, I've been told about Breaking Bad, wasn't interested, started watching it on Netflix. And you're right, especially with something, Nick's a little bit more general in terms of, like, a lot of people have the channel, but like something like Breaking Bad where it's a premium cable network like AMC, you're right, they were pulling in 2 million views and relying on things like The Walking Dead that are pulling in 10 to kind of finance that. And then season 5, Breaking Bad just blew up, and now it's everybody's favorite show, including mine. So you can definitely see that. And Netflix is such a great resource for doing that. I shot a video, and I haven't put it up, about Netflix in terms of its ability to make a show what it is in the end, and it's truly a great tool. And when they took Avatar down, because we were trying to get Tegan to watch all of Avatar, I'm like, now I'm gonna have to go online and find a way to stream it instead of just going on Netflix and watching it.
We're gonna support the official release by buying the DVDs off of Nickelodeon.com. Except they don't ship to Canada.
Yeah,
I actually pirated the whole season like 4 days ago. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I was watching through it. I just finished watching the what's that episode? The Blue Spirit. I just finished watching the Blue Spirit like 30 minutes ago before we started this. Yeah, so I'm just running through them.
we're gonna try to get, because Tegan, you've watched all of Korra and you've watched some of Avatar. We got to get her finished, because what we were gonna do is we were gonna have her on the show as that kind of opinion that doesn't know all the series, but we want to get her caught up now.
She's going to be the Bolin character.
She's going to be the Bolin character. So let's segue a little bit into more Korra-related questions, and this is just a no-brainer question.
Yeah, it's like a Castbender staple. We ask everyone your favorite character / element and why.
Okay, my favorite character is Tenzin. Because I think he's more of a developed character. He's way more developed than, I mean, I guess you could argue Korra is more developed, but honestly, I did not. For like half the season, I hated Korra. So, and you know, the second half she was better. I liked her the second half, but I don't know. Tenzin just has something about him. You know, the first season he was okay. He was kind of that guy that got in the way of Korra exploring Republic City, but this season, he just seemed like such more of a complete character. I really liked the air temple scenes that involved him. I loved learning about his family, and I loved learning about the relationship between him and his brothers and sisters, and kind of that strange relationship that he had with Aang, whereas his siblings didn't really have much of a relationship with Aang. I thought that was an interesting plot twist. So that's why I really liked Tenzin. He was more dynamic. He had flaws, but the flaws, he was still likable even with his flaws. Element, okay. I gotta go with fire. Especially during Avatar: The Last Airbender. That was my favorite element then. And I know it's like, oh, Fire Nation, that's bad, but I don't know, there's something cool about fire. I feel like you can do a lot with it. I mean, I guess it'd be kind of cool to be able to bloodbend people, but fire is just cool.
Yeah, fire is my favorite element too, and they've seemed to move from Fire Nation on towards the water tribes being the main villains for season 1 and 2, even as far as, you know, both of the villains in both series thus far, and all the waterbenders that are evil all kind of look the same.
Tanrock and Unalaq, when I saw them at Comic-Con, I couldn't tell the difference between them. I didn't know. I actually, one post, I swear, one post, I meant to write Unalaq, but I wrote Tanrock the whole time and published it, and people were like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, that's so true. Pissed off because it was like, come on, let's animate some new characters here. Let's just not reskin what you've already got.
Like even Tarlok from the first season looks extraordinarily like Korra's father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I don't like it. But okay, let's talk about, this is always a heated topic. Let's talk about season 1 and 2. Let's compare them a little bit, the good, the bad, and the backlash from the community in terms of like
how bad they were,
and, you know, the very little good things there were.
I think the worst thing is that they basically had very little connection. In terms of plot and even character development, I felt like a lot of the characters were almost reset from book 1 to book 2. But after book 1, after Korra kind of got her bending back, you thought that she'd be a little bit more humble, but she was at her worst at the beginning of book 2. Same with Bolin too. I understand that Bolin didn't really get much character development in book 1, but in book 2, he literally took 0 strides up until the last part where he kind of captured Varric. Another thing I didn't like was really the plot too. Okay, the equalist regime is done. That's great. Amon is gone. But don't you think that there's still some kind of conflict in the city? I mean, is everyone really just going to abandon the idea of anti-bending just because Amon is gone? I don't know. It just didn't make much sense to me.
You can sympathize with the equalist movement a little bit because, it makes sense. If you were a non-bender, you treated poorly by the benders, whatnot. That idea is probably very old and very still prominent, so it just kind of ceased to exist. I don't necessarily believe that would be true. I think there would still be a little bit of a fight afterwards, you know what I mean?
Well, we know Korra probably went and burnt them all to death or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea, AJ. That's probably exactly
I'm not saying like a joke. She probably just she had probably crushed them with rocks.
Genocide.
Let's talk about Korra and using the fire element a lot. I think a majority of the time she uses a lot of fire. Is that like because of her attitude?
I never actually noticed that, but you're right. She does use a lot of fire. And I think that, that is symbolic for where she is as a character. She's obviously very more physically oriented. Like, she's more inclined to fight than talk it out. She's hard-headed. I mean, that makes sense. Fire is that type of element. You saw Zuko. He used fire with so much rage for much of the season, and Korra kind of uses that element in a similar manner, in that she fights with more rage than anything.
Season 3, this is where it starts to get interesting, because you can do a lot of things with it. Now, you can do what they've been doing with the last 2 seasons and kind of create a whole new plot each season, but a lot of people want a little bit of an arcing theme, a hangover, in terms of how the seasons connect.
They want to get really drunk in the 3rd season.
Yeah, they really want to get drunk.
Have a hangover in the 4th.
So we're left with the spirits and the material world and the humans kind of like interacting, and they're there. But as we know, that probably won't necessarily work how everybody wants it to. And do you think they're going to really drive on keeping the spirit connection like they did with the 2nd book? Or do you think they're going to completely abandon that or push it to the background for the next season?
Well, I think book 3 is going to suck. No, I'm just kidding. Well, okay, so I think book 3 has a pretty good chance of succeeding, just because book 2 and book 3 are a lot more intertwined than book 1 and book 2 was. As we know, book 3 is dealing with change, and we saw in one of the book 2 DVD commentaries, Brian kind of talked about exactly what the whole premises of book 3 is. Well, for starters, Republic City is going to kind of turn into, it's going to have patches of spirit wilds. And spirits are just going to be roaming around Republic City, and they're going to basically be turning the city into kind of like their home. And part of that is because Korra left the 2 spirit portals open. So I think it's kind of cool that book 3 will kind of have something to do with book 2. It's not like it's going to completely ignore what happened in book 2, because it's basically exactly like what happened, like the outcome of book 2. So I think it has a pretty good chance of succeeding just because it's kind of linked together. My only problem is that there's really no linkage between like the villains. Unalaq's kind of done. I sort of wish that they would kind of develop a character over the course of several seasons instead of just developing him over one season and then killing him off.
Yeah, we've had this theory going around for a while that the Dark Avatar cycle could, be a thing.
AJ's debated a lot with a lot of people.
I really want it to be a thing, the Dark Avatar cycle. Unalaq died, reborn somewhere else.
Oh, that would be cool, actually.
Like, AJ, explain your technicalities behind it, because a lot of people don't agree, but it could be possible.
So we've had it stated, Ralva can't die and Batu can't die.
Right.
They're always, there. But when one or any of the avatars who have the spirit died with the spirit of light inside them, the next avatar would be born.
Right.
So you would think the dark avatar died with the dark spirit inside of them, that the next dark avatar would be born.
I think that'd be kind of cool, actually, if the Dark Avatar came back. But, knowing Mike and Brian and their whole idea of creating separate seasons, which hasn't really played out too well, they're probably just going to ignore the whole thing. But I think it'd be pretty cool if they did that.
There's also Ko, the face stealer. It's very possible that Ko makes a return.
Ko does come and steal some of the Republic City folks' faces. That'd be kind of funny. Threw me off about the book 2 finale, though, was like the whole Power Rangers type of thing, like Pacific Rim. When everyone like morphed into like these what do they call them in Power Rangers? Like the Megazords. They morphed into these giant Megazords, and I was like, what just happened? What am I watching? I don't know. It was kind of strange. I was actually reading up about it a little bit before we started the show because I wanted to kind of be prepared if we talked about the whole idea of them morphing into these Megazords. And I gotta be honest, I still don't really understand how that all worked out.
The whole of the season finale seems to just be a whole bunch of headcanon.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Tegan, you have a question?
Yeah,
This one's good.
Still thinking about season 3, the creators have stated that they're leaving the relationships sort of alone. Do you think it's a good idea?
I do, especially Korra's relationship, because that whole love triangle between Korra, Mako, and Asami is just so dumb now. Like, it happened all in book 1, and it was like, okay, it's cool. We saw romance in Avatar: Last Airbender, and I guess it's cool to put it in Legend of Korra. But then when you have Korra and Mako come together, and you pretty much pissed off the entire fandom for about a year, like, why don't you just leave it alone now? Do you really have to bring Asami back in the picture? Why can't you just leave it Makora? I mean, I guess that some people hate Makora, and to be honest, I hate all of them. I don't really...
I'm agreeing with you.
I think they should all die.
It should just get rid of it, because we see now, okay, Mako is with Asami, and Korra's sitting there on the side. But what's going to happen next? Are you going to bring back Korra and Mako? It's just ridiculous now. I really hope they just end it. And not because I want to piss off Makora fans, but I just want it to stop.
I would prefer if...
Sassy comment coming.
Yeah.
Well, I would prefer if they all just didn't have the relationship stuff. It would make sense to not have relationships anymore.
I think the only relationship stuff should come from like Tenzin and Pema and like that Lin stuff, which is a lot more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really think they should get rid of Asami. Like, to be honest, I really think they should just get rid of her, because she's useless at this point. She's not a love interest anymore.
We talked about killing off a character,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I've been calling for that thing since the end of season 1.
I've been calling for the death of Tenzin, not because I don't like him. I actually like Tenzin. I think he's a great character, and it would suck to kill him off because he's one of the only redeeming qualities of but like the mentor character typically dies, and I think it could do a lot of things. It could change Korra completely.
For more discussion on this topic and every single topic we've covered, please check out the last 3 episodes of Casting.
I would be really sad if they killed off Tenzin, because he's the one character that I really like. If they killed off Pema, like, I don't even know what I'd think. Like, I wouldn't really care because, I mean, it's whatever, but like, I'd always be like, what's the point of that?
Other than Tenzin, I think what do you feel about Varric? I think he's the redeeming character of the series thus far. I think you can really explore a lot of things with Varric. You can do a lot of things with him. How do you feel about Varric as a character?
I like Varric as a character, but I thought the subplot with Varric was stupid. Like, I just didn't... my whole thing was, as the season was going on, I was bad-mouthing it pretty much in every post because I thought it was dumb. But I also wanted the writers to prove me wrong. I really wanted that whole subplot to really turn into something huge, just groundbreaking, like big time in terms of plot. But in the end, they arrested Varric, and then Varric escaped, and nothing else happened. So that was my biggest problem with it, because it really had nothing to do with Korra's whole side. I mean, Korra's sitting here trying to fight Unavatu or whatever, and the rest of Team Avatar is sitting here trying to arrest Varric, and then he escapes in the end. And what happened, really? Nothing happened in the end. All you found out was that Varric is just trying to get richer, create a war, and that's it. It just didn't really. I wish it tied into the actual plot somehow instead of just kind of remaining this single subplot that didn't really do anything for the series.
Well, a lot of people are calling for Varric to be the villain or anti-hero for the next season.
Yeah, I saw that.
That would be cool.
Why I post that, because I think a strong anti-hero, even if you continue, I know it's a bit late now, but if you continue to make the villain die every season or like be non-relevant, I think you should have maybe a reoccurring anti-hero, because it would make sense. Like Zuko kind of filled that role for a bit, and Azula had that role pretty much the whole way through, and then I think you had like multiple like major villains when it came to talking about in the end, but like they have no anti-hero. There's either a villain and a good guy, or like just the good guy and then the villain's dead.
The most anti-hero kind of guy we got was the President Reiko.
And he was just not even, he was just a good guy that was playing politics.
He was just an asshole. But then we'd have, another corrupt political figure in Republic City. But this time they elected him. So.
Yeah. Okay,
Now, lastly, to wrap everything up, we have a couple fan questions we want you to answer. We kind of addressed some of them already in the interview, but can't let down the fans, so here we go. Steve asks,
expectations and hopes for book 3. Characters, are you looking forward to seeing it? Let's rephrase it a bit.
What are you looking forward to most in book 3?
Yeah, even if it's outlandish, even if there's nothing to back it up, just something that you want to see in book 3.
Dark Avatar.
Dark Avatar, Ko, or Pema's death.
Yeah. Last question here from a fan. Allison asked, okay, this is a great question. I think it's the best question all day. I love you, Allison. Why is the series so awesome? Can you put into one sentence why the series is awesome?
Okay, I think the series is awesome because even though there are no filler episodes, it's cool to see the plot develop to such a degree every week.
Love the answer. Great answer.
There's no sarcasm in that answer whatsoever. So, I have...
Oh, AJ's got a question.
My final question of this whole episode, to wrap it up whole. What is your opinion on Bolin and how should he die?
Okay. Bolin. I really want Bolin to be a good character. Like, I really do. But the problem is that he doesn't do anything. Okay, book 1, I understand. Okay, it was cool. They were trying to develop him as a funny character. I thought that was awesome. I even got a couple of laughs from him. I thought it was cool. But book 2, right, I was looking for his character to take strides and kind of adapt to something more than just the funny guy that's just dumb stuff all the time. I was looking for him. I don't want him to mirror Sokka and take the leadership role, but I want him to develop as a character and to turn into something more substantial. Book 2, really, he was wrapped, like I said, in the Varric plot, which I thought was useless. He was playing Nuktuk for like half the season, and I thought there was really no point to Nuktuk. It's okay, they're trying to do propaganda videos. I understand that. But at some point, I thought they had to let it go. The first episode, I thought it was good. The second episode, I thought it was funny. The third episode, I was really looking forward to seeing Bolin do something else. And he didn't. He kind of stuck with that role. He was trying to get with that ginger girl for like 3 episodes. And then at the end, yes, he solved the Varric plot. And that's why I'm not too overly upset with what they did with Bolin in book 2. Even though I didn't think they did the best job at all, they still ended his character on a high note. They still made him do something, even though that something really had nothing to do with Korra's plot. At least he did something.
I do have to agree that he was much better in the second season than the first season, but that is not saying a whole lot.
Okay, I hate Bolin. Well, I used to hate Bolin. He's more tolerable now. I think the only reason I like Bolin a little bit is because I want him to be a good character. Mm-hmm. Like, I desperately want Bolin to be a good character, and it hasn't happened yet. But I want a bunch of people to be good characters, so we'll have to see in season 3. Like, Lynn's got potential to be a fantastic character. You could improve on Varric. Tenzin's solid. Korra, like, come on, Korra's the main character here. Let's get some development going on.
Yeah.
If we could see like 1 inch of character development from Korra, I would be so happy.
Yeah, definitely. So we'd like to thank you for coming on the show today, and we had a great time having this interview. And let's do some more because it's a great thing. It's a
Good
great
old
thing.
time.
Yeah, we look forward to having you on in the future if you'd come back.
So do you want to plug any of your social media and website so people can go visit if they haven't already?
Yeah, sure. So my blog is avatarlegendofkorraonline.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at legendofkorrawp. I don't know. I couldn't really get anything else, so that's what I came up with. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys check that out, and thanks for listening.
Definitely go check it out, guys, because we're always talking about it in the show.
I'll hit you with a dead pabu.
Dead Paboos. If you guys don't, like, we pull so much information, like, you guys need to know what we're talking about, and they write great articles, so go over there and check it out, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We started off in the morning, a few stops before Strawberry Hill, with the sweet taste of glory to dampen our minds for the night. A few tears were dry by the dawn. We sipped the light. We've got a good life. I made a fool the next night. Whatever slipped my mind. We split away on a Sunday. A lingering smiles for the ride. Then we stole the flowers by the road and jumped the line. We've got a good life. Do-do-do. Hello, mother and father. We remember the ride to the bay.
Everybody enjoyed our interview with Keval from Avatar, The Legend of Korra Online.com, and go over and check out his stuff if you really enjoyed it. I'm going to give you some contact information of our own right now before I let everybody go. So if you want to contact the podcast, you can do so from a couple ways. You can go to our website, castbender.ca, and you can find all the resources there. You can find the latest episodes, past episodes. You can find out all the information about the staff and everything like that. We're on social media a lot. You can find us at twitter.com/castbender, facebook.com/castbender, and youtube.com/castbenderpodcast. You can also shoot us an email if you would like at castbender@live.com. Remember, the show is free and we do it out of our own pockets, and it's weekly, so if you want to donate, you can go over to castbender.ca and click the donate tab. You can do a monthly donation, a one-time donation, and any amount would be feasible, and there are rewards for the amount you donate. So this is Castbender, the show about Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. If you enjoyed it, make sure you go over to iTunes and give it 5 stars and leave us a review, and that would be fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.